AskReddit by HDFHBN. What American city has fallen the furthest in the last 5 years? Jackson, Mississippi. The murder rate is literally unbelievable and the decay of the city and basic amenities is really tragic. Easily the worst place I've ever been in my entire life. It is crazy to me that that is the capital of the state and all of the politicians have to drive through there and witness it. The entire area around the Capitol building is completely dead and there are homeless people everywhere. Everything is dilapidated and dirty. Not a big city, but I drove through Meridian, MS after several years and the decay was really shocking. Everything seemed shuttered and dead, except Walmart. And there you have the answer of the #1 killer of small town America, Walmart. Turns out that if you take all of the money out of a town and send it to Bentonville, that your own local economy doesn't do too well. I just wanted to say I'm from Detroit and I'm really proud of my city for how it's bouncing back recently. Yes, I recently moved to Detroit from the Northeast and I really love it here. Compared to the rest of the country, it's relatively affordable and the quality of life is great. Was shockingly surprised because everybody always said how bad Detroit was, but that is definitely not the case here anymore. I am very happy here overall. Hearing about these makes me appreciate the progress Detroit has made in the last 5-10 years. The Motor City is getting better every day. I was shocked when I visited Detroit last May. It's been 15 years since I last visited and wow, what an improvement. Apparently it's Houston, which has been averaging a subsidence of 17 mm a year. On Postcom Climate Environment 2023-05-30 land sinking of subsidence sea level. Parts of the city have fallen up to 3 meters since 1917. And here I was thinking, oh good, no one's mentioned my city yet. But only because we're actually sinking. That's okay then. The answer is Davenport, IA, but no one gives a shit about it, including the elected officials of Davenport, IA. Allowing buildings to deteriorate to the point of random collapsing in that town didn't help either. It shows what little the elected officials show of concerns of the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. Oakland looked like it was on the path to bigger and better things before the pandemic. A few tech companies moved headquarters there and more were looking to move. Urban renewal looked like a real possibility. Then the pandemic hit and undid all the progress and then some. Parts of Oakland feel lawless. 911 does not respond and criminals walk from car to car, breaking windows in broad daylight. The local government seems utterly incompetent. Really sad situation for everyone living here. Moving out of Oakland at the end of this month after living here my whole life. Partially for personal reasons but largely because the city has gone to shit while getting even more expensive than before. Charleston, WV. Its population has steadily declined by an average of about 1.5% per year for over 2 decades. It's the only state capital in the US is dying. Jackson, MS would like a turn. Poor knee, it got so bad that they don't even show it on TV anymore. At least they didn't go bankrupt like those losers in Eagleton. San Francisco. Born and amp, raised there and amp. I've never seen it like this. People are leaving notes in the windows begging thieves not to break their windows. A co-worker took the tint off his windows so they can see he doesn't have anything. They busted his windows and amp. Took his 49 air bobblehead that was on his dashboard. I was told to just never lock your car doors in New Orleans. They're breaking in regardless, so just leave it unlocked so you don't have to replace a window. All the cities across the US have most of the same issues: declining tax revenue, rising homeless population, exploding drug addiction rates, and wild spending to fix the last 2 issues. These issues have been building for decades and will take decades to fix. Cities are spending money to solve a national issue. This comes at the detriment of city services that people rely on. Strong Towns has been talking for 10 plus years about how urban sprawl creates massive infrastructure liabilities that low density development doesn't generate the tax base to support. The only reason cities have stayed solvent is due to new investment from continuous growth, which has allowed them to kick the can down the road for decades. But cities can't grow forever. Once the population levels off, the house of cards comes crashing down. The pandemic was just the catalyst for this in some major cities, but it will eventually happen everywhere if we keep building our cities the way we do. Y'all are all missing the answer. It's New Orleans. Hands down. Dwindling tax bases, exasperating a lack of police, and collapsing infrastructure, civic corruption and crime are at all-time highs, causing even more attrition. In about 20 years it won't even be the biggest city in the state. I've lived in New Orleans for 10 years and it's been kinda shitty the whole time I've been here, but there was a certain charm to the shittiness and it was affordable. That has definitely changed in the last 5 years though. It's no longer affordable and all the artists and people who made the city interesting can't live here anymore. This summer has been so fucking brutal that I really want to get the fuck out, but I'm stuck here another 4 years. Chicago is doing fairly well all things considered, but many of the other cities in the state of Illinois are on track to suffer the same fate as Gary, Indiana. Chicago has the advantage of scale and a highly educated labor force, so companies are willing to deal with the high property taxes in Illinois to be in proximity to Chicago. Other cities in the state like Bloomington, Rockford, Springfield, and Decatur don't have these same advantages, so companies looking to open a plant, mainly manufacturing food processing, have no reason to choose them over comparable places with lower taxes like Indiana and Iowa. This has led to massive population loss and increases in crime basically everywhere that isn't a college town. When you hear about Illinois suffering a massive exodus, it's from places like this downstate, not Chicago. Bloomington is fine. It's a college town with State Farm insurance and they recently revived the auto manufacturing facility with Rivian. Don't name a city unless you have been there. The city I live in, every answer on here. I live in Detroit, and it actually looks a lot better than 5 years ago. I love America. I travel there several times a year, have done for 30 years. All I can say is what is happening in downtown San Francisco, Seattle and Los Angeles is truly concerning and frightening, but for sheer rate of change over 5 years I think Portland would have to be a contender. Portland homeless rate increased 50% since 2019. Was reading about it today. Memphis. By far. Car thefts are over 7,000 this year alone. 5 years ago it wasn't like that. Murders, drugs, robbing. Memphis is hook. I second Portland, Oregon. I travel there every year from Vancouver, Canada because it was a great city with fun breweries, food options and a good vibe overall. I went there recently, haven't been since the pandemic, and it was a completely different city. The Uber ride in from the airport to downtown was the first red flag that things had changed. I saw homeless encampments underneath overpasses and off ramps. It seemed like tents were everywhere. When I was downtown the number of drug addicted homeless people was shocking. I saw 2 of them fighting in the street, another man was going up to bystanders yelling and threatening. The homeless were very aggressive and this was in the tourist areas I've visited in the past. It didn't feel safe to be there and I never had that feeling in all my years traveling there before. I visited Detroit a few weeks ago and quite honestly the downtown area there felt much safer than downtown Portland. Feels like next door in here. I'm proud to say that it isn't St. Louis, Missouri. The Midtown area in particular has really cleaned itself up over the last 5 years. As a flight attendant that spends 17 days a month in other cities, here is my list. Memphis. San Fran. Don't have a local perspective on any of it, but I had done multiple trips to Memphis and San Fran and wow. San Fran's inability to combat its homelessness problem along with open drug on every corner is alarming. I dropped my wallet in a Walgreens for 90 seconds and it was instantly gone lol. Paid for my stuff, left the store, immediately realized I didn't have my wallet gone. Additionally, the security guards in every Walgreens, CVS, etc. speaks volume. Memphis just straight up doesn't feel safe after dark in any capacity. I grew up wrestling and do jiu-jitsu, so I'm no sissy, but Memphis after dark felt sketchy at best. Honorable mentions: Seattle, Portland. The downtown has the same problems as San Fran. The company I work for doesn't even put us downtown in Seattle, Portland anymore. We stay in the town over now. Louisville, Kentucky. HIV spikes, opioid crises, exploding homeless population, political polarization, and a crumbling infrastructure due to massive tax inequality. The whole west side of the city is rarely visitors due to violent crime being much higher than the national average. Did I mention the entire public school system can't even bus their students to school? Last week some kids didn't get home until almost 10 p.m. San Francisco. A lot of empty tech buildings. Thousands of tech layoffs. Falling equity values and the crypto meltdown have only deepened the blow to the area. Portland. Went from everyone hyping it as an example for urban areas everywhere with its push for being environmentally friendly and attracting young people to a warning story with its housing issues, drug and homeless problems and inept police and government. Louisville, KY. In 2022 Louisville ranked number 5 for the most homicides right after Chicago. Crime here has become very routine, from theft to drugs to murder. This once great city ain't what it used to be, and makes me so sad. I'm highly considering moving to Portland and this post was scaring me. Visited earlier this summer and absolutely loved it. It looked like it had some bad pockets but nothing crazy. It's totally dependent on what your standard is. If you lived in Portland 5-10 years ago you'd be appalled at what is now. San Francisco. I just saw yesterday where they were able to do a meta study of local activity based on cell phone network data usage. Whereas cities like New York City and Chicago have mostly recovered, downtown San Francisco is still barely above covered lockdown levels. Shout out to DT St. Paul, it was dead before the pandemic. Portland, and it's a damn shame. Growing up there, it used to be incredibly beautiful and welcoming. Now it's a homelessness drug hellhole with no end in sight. Refreshing to not see New York City on here tbh. Also refreshing to not see Boston either. Like Boston has gotten worse in the last 5 years, mainly from public transportation getting worse and traffic getting super worse, but like it's good to know that's such a small problem comparatively. San Francisco. I say this as a Californian and a huge fan of this state. SF used to be a fun place to visit, albeit always expensive. Now it's just an expensive dirty place to visit with homeless shitting on the streets and drug use all over the place. City leadership there needs to get their shit together and get said shit off of the streets. When I visited San Fran in 2008 and it really felt like a utopia. It's sad to see city leaders let it fall into chaos.